Hey all, Scott here from Art of the Genre, and today we are talking about SF-1. This is the second part of the Volturnus adventure series for Star Frontiers. Volturnus, the Planet of Mystery. It was written by Mark Akers and Tom Molday. And we're just going to take you through some of my DM notes on it today, and see how those go. And if you have any questions, obviously you can put them in any of the comments below here on YouTube. Let's get started and see what we have going on here. As you can see, this is the front cover of it. This is done by Jeff Easley, and we're going to be reintroduced to the Ulmor in the beginning of this one. They were a big part of the SF-0 after the crash on Volturnus, and you start out in the adventure still with the Ulmor after the last attack by the Quick Death that you had to kind of survive and become basically members of their tribe. And they're going to tell you about a race that they don't like that's also on the planet called the Curabanda, and then you will move forward kind of looking out and trying to find the Curabanda there. But really, some of the more interesting things about this particular thing when you're looking about art, one of the things that I saw on it is that this art is also done by Tim Truman, who does some pieces in here, as well as Jim Holloway, who does a lot of the pieces in the original SF Zero. But Tim's work is really, really cool. Some of my favorite stuff ever done in early Dungeons and Dragons. His black and white pencils are really kind of sublime. And you can see here that he's got the interior cover on it. One of the other things that I noted on this back in 2014, I found this particular piece online, which is an unfinished cover for what I would say would be one of the Volturnus series, because it has some creatures in it that are mainly concerned with Volturnus. And this is done by an artist by the name of Nicholas Jansen. I actually got in contact with Nicholas, and I've talked to him probably once a year for what is that, 9 years now, just wondering if he would ever look to finish something like this or put something together for Star Frontiers. And as you can see, he was motivated to do things within Volturnus itself. I guess that's what he was looking for in reference. Obviously, if you check some of these pictures out here, there are Huma and other races in here that would come out of Zebulon's Guide. But on this right-hand section, you can see he's got a lot of monsters and stuff, and his visions for security robots and stuff like that are always on Volturnus. But anyway, I absolutely loved his style. You find his stuff whenever you search for Star Frontiers imagery, but a lot of his stuff was taken directly here from these Volturnus modules. But nevertheless, let's get into the meat of the adventure itself. As I said, you start off with the Ulmor, and the book basically starts out with the same thing. If you don't have the map that's actually listed, that's actually comes with SF-0, you're kind of in trouble here, because that's the only place that you can get the world map. And it's a big, hex map, and it shows you how long, basically you go hex a day. And that's the way that this one starts too. And if you remember my review on SF-0, it's that I really didn't like that it was an introduction to Star Frontiers, and basically you were only doing Dungeons and Dragons, just walking across the wilderness. And you start this one doing the exact same thing. You're taken by the Ulmor. You're trying to get to the Curabanda forest, where they're located, and therefore you have to, go a certain number of days. And that's they have different sections in this. And in the beta section, it's basically you're walking to the Shard Glass Plains, and you're taken there by the Ulmor. And then once you get to the Shard Glass Plains, the Ulmor say, look, we're not going to take any further, so you're going to have to, go on your own. And this is, of course, shard grass is something that you can't walk through without getting cut, and people take damage, and it's really kind of a pain in the ass if you're going to, as the DM, look into trying to make that work, or trying to keep track of it. So you're basically either have to hack your way through it or move very, very slowly. So it's just taking more time walking around doing nothing. Obviously, within the shard glass, there are things that a couple of encounters. The first one is you find like a steamrolled area of the grass that you can actually move through, which speeds up your play. But it takes you to these things, which are called rollers, which is these things always made me laugh because in my opinion, it looks like somebody was like using the bathroom, before they wrote this adventure, or Tim Truman did the artwork for this adventure. But it basically looked like an animal with a big roll of toilet paper on the front of their face. But anyway, these monsters roll this grass out. And then I guess consume it. I don't know why it would have to be rolled beforehand, but anyway, they kind of clear you a trail, and you can fight them if you want to. But if they turn around and stampede you, they'll roll over you. But basically, it's an encounter that's not an encounter. You can look at them. If you stay away from them, you can kind of follow them until you get to the another encounter, which is basically the same thing. Another beast that you're not going to actually have to fight if you don't want to. And finally, after doing nothing and walking through the shard glass for some time, as the DM, if your players are already tired of it, you get to the Carabanda forest. And as soon as you get there, that's where the action really starts to take place. And that's where the module itself starts to be fun. And you get to a little bit of Star Frontiers coming into it. And that's because you get into a first encounter with the Star Devil Pirates. And the Star Devil Pirates are in the trees fighting this kind of evolved race of monkeys called the Kurabanda. And you can assist them, that be the Kurabanda, and defeat these pirates, because obviously you have issues with pirates if you've run the previous module, because they attacked your ship and have kind of been looking for you in their jet copters. So this is a good fight. It's a fight that I would think a lot more can be added to it. Basically, if you wanted to put in some kind of rules of moving up and down within the tree line, swinging, falling, all these things can be incorporated with. They're not actually in the module. You have to go those as a DM. But when I do this battle, it's a lot more fun to make it feel more aerial, which it is. It's all in these treetops. If you get overwhelmed by the pirates, another group of Carabanda versus I think the 4 maybe that are left here against the pirates will show up and help you out. But nevertheless, there's a mention of the pirates had an explorer vehicle here, but you're not allowed to find it. And if any of them escape, they escape, whatever. Nevertheless, you go through this fight, and then the Carabanda are going to try to kind of pigeonhole you and get you back to their village. If you want to or not, you're going to have to go back to the village. And at that point, you're going to talk to their clan chief, and you're trying to make basically diplomacy inroads with this chief. And the thing I don't like about the adventure is it rolls very heavily on the fact that you've got to influence people, and they're kind of weighing in on role playing. And if you're not in a group that has a lot of good role players, or somebody that wants to talk to the chief and mention certain things and come away with something that you have to judge as the DM, because there's not like a chart that says, like, obviously there's no diplomacy, so you can't say if I get a diplomacy score of X, then I get this reaction, because they're like 4 reactions that the chief can have. But there's no way to really kind of find a way to do that other than just going off the cuff, unless you want to build something into the game or using a different mechanic other than the original Star Frontiers. Like if you're using my fast system or something like that, obviously that would be an influence roll. But nevertheless, that's not something that was built into the original game. So therefore you have to make it up and decide after you've made it up what on this chart. It's not really a chart, it's just 4 options that this chief can have. And the eventuality is that the chief will want to show you where these pirates came from. Also, it's mentioned that 2 people are taken away from that were recently 2 humans or outworlders were captured within the village, or they were in the village, and then they got captured by the Star Devils and taken away recently. One of the things I like to do when I run this adventure, just because it's me and it's the way I like to run things, I have one of them be a female character who is actually still in the village. And this gives you kind of a Leia in Return of the Jedi feel. And she can kind of come out and have been with them. She's from the original mission that was sent here before your mission, to kind of do surveying stuff. And she doesn't have, there's nothing really she has to tell you about it other than they're pirates here and they've been trying to get them. But other than that, she won't know much more. But it's a good way to have an NPC come into it if you have characters who are looking for romance or something like that, which I always do. So, so you can have fun doing that. Bring that in and not have both of them taken. But the most important thing is the one of them is I think he's a lieutenant or something like that that is important in the later campaign, and he has to have been captured because he's taken. Because he shows up later, but you can do that. But nevertheless, at the end of this, if you want to, I think to add something to the adventure itself, you can have the chief require something of the players to show them where these star devils are. And I would do it. No matter what you do on the influence chart, I would have him do it because it's a really neat section of this adventure where you get to go on these gliders and then you hunt rollers and try to bring down a roller for the village. And you can have kind of a big celebration and stuff like that when you bring down a roller that feeds them for months, yada yada yada, and it gives you, again, you're kind of a member of a tribe. So 2 of the races then within Volturnus, you're kind of in with. That's the Olmor and the Kurabanda. So, and that's a neat section. So I would say include it no matter what the diplomacies are, and therefore you'll have the ability to do this kind of cool twist. And after that, you start the Gamma section. In the Gamma section, you can see a couple drow sites here done by Holloway, which is funny, getting attacked. But the Gamma section, again, is walking for the most part, at least in the beginning of it. And you can either go a route via the desert or you can go a route via the lake. They're going to be encounters in each one. It's going to give the characters the ability to choose which way they kind of want to go. To find this basically a pirate research base. But if you do go into the desert, you can always get attacked by jawfish, which I think are awesome. So, but nevertheless, you have to do that. So again, more walking. But eventually you will find the small pirate research base. And that's where you get into, obviously this is another piece, this is by Truman, something, a baboon that you can be attacked by, and a spitter. But eventually you get to the base, and this is another race, the third race that's been kind of evolved within this Volturnus system. This is the, let me get this right, the Edis I think is what they're called. They're really weird, kind of like Zorn creatures. This one has been experimented on by the pirates. We have no idea why, listed in the module whatsoever. They would be experimenting on them. But anyway, you defeat the small pirates. I think they're like 4 in the base, plus some robots. And then you can get a jet copter, which is probably what everyone really wants in this. But one of the things I did in this module was, especially if you're using Zebulon's Guide or you're using another rule set that has psionics or something like that in it. Remember, all these creatures in the Volturnus series, you find it out in this module, are evolved or by this another race. And that race is a dying one that was attacked by Sathar, and they're trying to basically evolve 3 other races within their world to help them defeat the Sathar, I guess, at some other point. But all the races are still very primitive, that being the Olmor and so forth and so on in this race as well. But one of the things that I did was have what these pirates are looking to do, and why they're experimenting on them is because these things are evolved in nature in their brains. Their brains are getting more powerful. They're becoming, self-aware and so forth and so on. But they have extracted basic things, basic like a fluid or something like that from these. And this is just my story and what I would do with it. They've extracted some kind of brain juice, let's say, from these things. And you could have some kind of experiment, or this could get on somebody, like a doctor or somebody, if they're taking a look at this creature that's been basically, cut up here. Get some on themselves, and then it begins to evolve them, and they get psionic powers, which are in Zebulon's Guide, or let's say if you're using fast any other kind of system, and it gives kind of a cool wrinkle that you can, and that gives you also an insight into what this other race is doing. So in that standpoint, you have the ability to basically expand the campaign and get psionics into it if you wanted to. And if you do that, you can also have the pirate leader at the end, or not the end, but in the end, their end section, have psionics because he's used some of this juice. And then you could have a cool psionic battle, and it would add to just the flavor of your overall campaign. The other race, of course, that has evolved all these are something called the Orna, Eorna, and you will find them a little later. Nevertheless, like I said, you can get a jet copter, and this allows you to go up and fight sky whales and stuff like that as you try to get to the next section, which is after this section in the pirate bases. You find out that there is another pirate base, and at that base, the Edda are there and being kind of enslaved by the pirates. You're able to get to there. Remember, each one of these sections has experience, so you can get experience, I think, 4 times throughout the campaign. But nevertheless, and you can also do damage to the skycopter, or to the jetcopter here as well, which is important because you might want to lose it by the time you get to the end of the campaign. Because again, so much of this is based on people walking places, and you might not want them to have it when they get into the third actual module. But nevertheless, you do get one, so that's kind of cool. And eventually, you'll find this pirate base, and the pirates all have fun names. You can see here there's a drow site by Holloway that has a fake mustache and one of his eyes covered. But nevertheless, they're a lot of fun. The Star Devils, and you'll get to fight with them. However, if you go to the Edda village beforehand, you can have another diplomacy check to try to convince them that these Star Devil pirates are bad and they shouldn't be serving them as star gods or whatever they're called, because they're this very religious race of aliens. And again, that falls on diplomacy. You're trying to convince people of something that you don't really have any proof for unless you try to drag them back to the other base on the Skychopper, or on the jetcopter, and then you're showing them a dead body of one of the people that's been experimented on, but you can't really prove that you didn't do it. So I don't know. It's another really weird diplomacy check, but it is helpful if you have the Edda help you in attacking the pirates, because they're fairly powerful in their base. And remember, if you give the leader psi power, then that makes them even more powerful. But whatever the case, you get into a big pirate fight. And once that is done, you will get your first view of the other alien race, the Orna. The Orna in this are kind of like great apes or something like that, but there's no really picture of them in the book that I could find, or any other reference pieces of them. If I did the Eorna, I would make them more mystical humanoids. You might want to make them beautiful, which I always like put in my campaigns. But nevertheless, there are a few of them left, and one of them takes the prisoner lieutenant and runs off with them, giving you the ability to follow them. And then you get into a really weird section, which is the Epsilon section of the module, which has stuff like this, where it's just like crystals attack players. You go mentally crazy. You see visions inside their thing. It's a really kind of, it's just kind of a punk move by the DM. I think everybody will be very unsatisfied with this section. If you run through all the gauntlets of various things that can affect people's brains, sometimes permanently, just trying to find this race that then can tell you, hey, we're on your side. Actually, all this crap that hurt you, we didn't really mean to hurt you, and therefore, will you help us get rid of this Sathar artifact, which is going to call a Sathar attack fleet and destroy the whole planet, or everything on the planet. So again, stupid section. I hate it. There's some ways you could modify it, but my modification would just take out all the traps and just actually have something cool where you could talk to the Eorna. They're more mythical or and highbrow. And remember, they're a dying race, so it's not like you're going to include them in the campaign in a huge way. But nevertheless, that's what I would do with it. Just cut that out, because I think at this point you probably had enough battles. You don't need another weird stuff, and you're not over. You're going to have another battle, and that final battle is in the Zeta section, where if they convince you to go take out the artifact, And here's more of their crystal creatures and stuff you have to fight. Is just weird. You'll end up, here's a Tim Truman. You're going to end up fighting, Sathar modified beasts and stuff like that. And then the Sathar artifact, which is actually a big building with a transmitter. And in that transmitter, once you take it over, you see that there's a Sathar fleet coming, but you're going to be able to contact what is Duane's star, where you were initially came from, and therefore call in another attack fleet to stop the Sathar. And yay, you've saved everyone, and then you can presumably get off the planet. But remember, there is another section to this whole adventure. So we'll have to see how that goes. But that's where this one ends, when you're actually able to basically stop the fleet by calling in another fleet within this system and defeat some Sathar here. And then this one ends. And again, that is another experience flow. For my opinion, it's an okay module. If you like fighting pirates on the ground with lasers, you'll probably really, really like it. There's a lot of traveling. If your players like traveling, you'll probably like that too. And like I said, you could add in a couple of cool wrinkles with psionics, or giving this the Eorna a little bit more cool factor to them. Maybe find a cool alien you like online, and just showing a picture of that if you do, rather than, because there's no reference here other than some words that indicate that it's kind of an ape creature, which seems really, really weird, because they're so highly advanced. And the reason that the planet got attacked in the first place is because they launched some kind of fleet, and the Sathar identified it and then came and destroyed them. So I like to have them more mythical than I don't know, stone apes or whatever. But anyway, that is my review of this. If I was gonna, I give it a thumbs up. It's definitely better than the first one, an introduction to Star Frontiers. But again, you're landlocked on a planet. Other than getting the jet copter, which is pretty cool, you're still walking around, hacking at stuff, shooting at stuff if you need to. So it's very, very D&D-esque, not a really space adventure, although it does, again, show you what Star Frontiers is a lot of built around, which is exploring alien worlds and meeting alien races. So that is, basically what we have for that today. And hopefully you enjoyed it. And you'll join me when I go over actually it's SF-2, but it's actually the third one, because the first one was 0 in the trilogy. And we'll try to finish this one up and get you all the way through Volturnus. But otherwise, as I always say, to everyone out there, great gaming, and thanks for coming by.